You ever been in a meeting where everybody's nodding along, agreeing on a plan, but you've got that sinking feeling in your stomach that it's a terrible idea? We've all been there. Well, today we're going to dig into why that happens. We're talking about a hidden trap, a psychological phenomenon called groupthink, and it's something that can make even the smartest teams make just awful decisions. Understanding this is absolutely key to avoiding those kinds of disasters. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with a pretty dramatic story of failure. And then we'll really unpack the psychology behind it. We'll define groupthink, go through its 8 major warning signs, and then look at how these toxic environments even get started. And most importantly, we'll wrap up with a practical toolkit you can use to break the cycle and build much, much smarter teams. All right, let's kick things off with our recipe for disaster. You're going to see just how dangerous easy agreement can be. So here's the big question, right? How can a room just packed with brilliant, talented people come together and make a decision that is just catastrophic? This has baffled leaders for decades. You think about something like the Bay of Pigs invasion. I mean, the team behind that plan had some of the sharpest minds of the entire generation. So what on earth went so wrong? I mean, listen to this. President Kennedy himself asked that exact question after it all fell apart. And that just gets right to the heart of it. The problem wasn't a lack of intelligence. Not at all. It wasn't about expertise. The problem was the process. It was a complete failure of the group dynamics, a fundamental flaw in how they reached that unanimous and ultimately devastating decision. So that flawed process, it actually has a name. And now we're going to put a label on this cognitive virus. We're going to define groupthink. That whole pressure cooker of conformity, the thing that led them straight into disaster, it has a specific psychological term. And there it is, groupthink. So what does that actually mean? Well, in plain English, it's what happens when the need to fit in and maintain group harmony becomes way more important than actually making a good call. The social pressure to just agree is so intense that critical thinking, common sense, it all just gets tossed right out the window. So how do you spot this in the wild? How do you know if your own team is kind of sick with groupthink? Well, there are 8 distinct warning signs to look for. Think of them like symptoms of a bigger problem. Okay, the first 4 symptoms, these all help create this really dangerous atmosphere of overconfidence. First up is the illusion of invulnerability. This is when the group starts to feel like they're untouchable, like they just can't fail. Then that leads to collective rationalization, where everyone works together to dismiss any red flags or warnings instead of actually thinking about them. This is usually paired with a belief in inherent morality, where the group just assumes that what they're doing is morally right, so they don't even consider the ethical fallout. And finally, you get stereotyped views of outsiders. The group starts writing off any opponents as too dumb or too weak to be a real threat. Now, the next 4 symptoms are all about enforcing that conformity. It starts with direct pressure on anyone who even thinks about questioning the group consensus. Because of that pressure, people start engaging in self-censorship. They just keep their doubts to themselves to avoid rocking the boat. And this, of course, creates an illusion of unanimity, because silence is taken as agreement. And finally, you get the mind guards. These are people in the group who basically appoint themselves to protect the leader and the team from any information that might burst their happy bubble. Right, so these symptoms, they don't just pop up out of thin air. So what are the conditions that let this kind of thinking take over? Let's take a look at how these toxic bubbles actually get built. And you can really see the contrast so clearly here. On one side, you've got a healthy group, a team that thrives on constructive debate, critical thinking, and different points of view. But on the other side, that's where groupthink lives. You have immense pressure to conform. People are afraid to speak up. And a lot of the time, you have a leader who makes their preferred choice known right from the start, which just kills any real debate before it can even get going. Okay, so we've diagnosed the disease and its causes. Now for the good part. How do we fix it? It's time to talk about breaking out of the bubble. Here's your practical toolkit. The good news is you can absolutely fight back against groupthink with some simple, powerful strategies. First, officially appoint a devil's advocate. This is huge because it makes disagreement a required part of the job, not some act of betrayal. Second, bring in outside perspectives. Get experts who don't have the same biases or history with the group to give you a fresh look. Third, and this is so important for leaders, keep your own opinion to yourself until everyone else has had a chance to speak. This stops you from steering the conversation from the get-go. And finally, hold a second chance meeting. After you think you've made a decision, get together one last time to let any unspoken, lingering doubts finally come out. But when you boil it all down, it comes back to one simple thing. The single most powerful tool you have against groupthink is just knowing that it exists. Seriously. Just being aware of these traps, these symptoms, and these solutions is the first and most critical step to making sure your team doesn't fall into them.
And that leaves us with one final, crucial question to ask ourselves. Think about your team at work, your circle of friends, any group you're a part of. After everything we've just talked about, which bubble are you in right now?